This is Vigneto, a podcast.
From the sun and soil they grow, from the land and sea they roam, drinking wine in the great unknown.
I'm Susannah Gold. I'm a wine educator, brand ambassador, writer, and marketer with a keen interest in both new and old world wines. My websites are vignetocommunications.com and susannahgold.com. And of course, I have a wine blog at vinata.com. I'm particularly keen on Italy, where I lived for 15 years. While I do consider myself a wine geek, I love to look at wine from all aspects. One of the things I want to do with this podcast is delve into the many facets of the wine world, looking at it from multiple points of view. The podcast will have different series, and for the next 10 weeks, I will be discussing the topic of sustainability with my friend and fellow wine lover, geek, and expert, Sunny Gandara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sunny, and I've worked in multiple facets in the wine industry over the past 15 years or so. Currently, I'm the U.S. brand director for Quetchabella, which is an Italian winery located in Tuscany, and I have a special interest in vegan and organic wines. I'm also the global wine director for Matthew Kenny Cuisine, which is a worldwide plant-based hospitality and restaurant group. A trained chef and food and wine blogger on the side, where my focus is on pairing wines with plant-based dishes. I want everyone to discover the enormous, exciting, and delicious world of plants and the gastronomic pleasures you can get eating a vegan diet with a glass of wine, of course.
Today's guest is Jennifer Huether, Canada's first Master Sommelier and co-founder of Social Herbivore, among many other pursuits. So I'm really excited to have you on today. And Sunny, I think you're up with the first question.
Yes. Hi, Jennifer. Very nice to have you with us today. So as Susannah said, you're Canada's first female master sommelier, which I think is super cool. And you're also a fellow WSET diploma holder. So I was curious because I've been following you for a while. And of course, I know you a little bit through social media and things like that. What led you to focus on Canadian wines? I see you promoting a lot of them, and also, of course, vegan and organic wines.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have really grown up here, and it's really interesting because the wine industry here, I've actually grown up in wine with the wine industry here. I guess that's the best way to put it. So, you know, looking back here in Ontario, for example, in Canada 30 years ago, there was just a handful of kind of mom and pop cottage industry type of wineries around. And, you know, once in a while you'd find someone who made one good wine. But outside of that, it was, you know, it was just really an emerging region at that point. And I have seen Ontario and in fact Canada just really blossom and explode over, you know, as I said, the last 30 years, in particular, the last 10. It's really, you know, we've really gained momentum here. And I mean, understanding that in Canada, with this being new wine regions, I mean, 30 years isn't a long time to figure out the lay of the land and what grows where. And we're dealing with very different climates. So in Ontario, we have really a continental climate with 4 seasons and pretty intense winter. So for all intents and purposes in our wine world, it's a cool climate. And it took a while to understand that Syrah wasn't going to make it through the winter necessarily here, or Cabernet Sauvignon wasn't going to excel in this climate.
Right.
As well, when you look at BC, they have part of a desert in the south, Okanagan, and then it really swings all the way up in East Kelowna to a little bit more of a cool climate as well. So it's just suffice to say, it's been fascinating to live here and to be in wine. And a lot of times in my career, be purchasing and to have witnessed this massive evolution in our industry here. And now I can safely say I'm super proud of what we're making here. So I guess that is part of where I guess my passion lies and why I love to promote Canadian wines. And the second part of that was sustainable. And, you know, again, just growing and learning. One thing I think a lot of us forget, particularly that aren't in the wine industry, is that indeed wine is an agricultural product. it comes from a farm. And it's, yeah, of course it comes from a farm. Of course it comes from a grape, but I don't know, somehow it's lost in translation with the end user. And a lot of times they're just thinking about, the juice that's in the bottle. They're not really absorbing that backstory, particularly, maybe some of the romance of how somebody founded the winery or, the love story behind it, but they don't actually think like this is an agricultural product. And with that being an agricultural product, as we know, conventional farming can be so bad for absolutely everybody that works in the farm, who lives around the farm, et cetera, the animals, so forth and so on. So I guess that's, why I'm really passionate about that.
That's really, really interesting. And I think the same is true the world over, that people forget the connection between wine and the farm, and that how much wine is really an agricultural product. So I wanted to know, have you seen in this evolution that many more producers in Canada particularly are thinking about organic, biodynamic, or sustainable wines? Is that a topic that is, hot on everyone's mind?
Absolutely. It's so funny. Think back to, 15 years ago in the wine industry. Remember, organic was almost like a bad word. It was like, oh, that's so nice. You want to be organic. How cute for you. But meanwhile, right. Oh, the wines are horrible, right? Wow, haven't things changed big time? And here as well in Canada. And I really do, what I love that I'm seeing here is that it's not necessarily being consumer driven. It's being driven from the wineries themselves. And I have to applaud the winemakers and the wineries who are investing in this, because it is an investment. To get these certifications and to be in compliance, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of times reworking everything you thought, right? And you use. And here what I'm seeing is that they're leading the charge, which is really interesting, because you would think that, technically a marketplace would force, a farm or winery into doing the right thing, what's best for the environment, but it's the other way around. And so I'm super excited about that. So here in Canada, as far as sustainability goes, we got a certification in Ontario for wines about, I want to say 4 years ago. It's still quite new, but we already have 13 wineries who have received it and earned it, which is amazing in such a short window. And I know that in BC, their certified sustainable will come online this spring. So that's very exciting. And there's a lot of winemakers behind that movement and putting that together. And then, of course, organics, and don't forget too, sustainability you can be certified in the vineyard, or you can be certified in the winery, or both. And same with organics, right? So you can be certified in the vineyard or in the winery, or both. And it's certainly a lot easier in the Okanagan in BC, where it's quite a dry climate, to achieve organic status. But what's encouraging there is some of the biggest wineries, like Mission Hill, for example, and their umbrella brands are all going to be certified organic within the next year and a half or so. So when the largest player of wine in the region is doing this, it's just really exciting, and it's just very positive.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That is awesome. I know you said it's producer driven rather than consumer driven, but in terms of the Canadian consumer in general, do they look for local products? Do they look for local food, agricultural products? And do you see that kind of as an easy push to move them towards organic wine or biodynamic wine?
Yes and no. Okay, I'm gonna answer the no part first.
Great.
Because here's the weird thing about Ontario. And like I said, I've been selling Ontario wine here for decades. What I used to find when I was a big buyer here in Ontario, and we would have Canadians and Americans come and dine with us, is who would support was our American fellows. They wanted to try our wine. The Canadians were like, nah, this misconception that it's from here, it's not that good. The French wine's going to be better. The American wine's going to be better. Anything but our own wine. I mean, our own wine, so there wasn't that love of local here innately, whereas in BC and British Columbia, in Canada, it was flipped. Whereas in BC, all the restaurateurs, everybody just embraced BC wines, huge from the get-go. So it was a very different, it's been a hurdle to get over really with our consumers here. Now, I would say it is absolutely shifting. Thank goodness. First of all, we're making tons of great wine and very interesting wines here. But I think also we have younger generation coming in. We have more awareness of eating local, 100-mile diet, all those sorts of things that are really helping. So I think, I've seen this little bit of a shift here where our local community is much happier to support local. We have other barriers too. So for example, local wineries selling wines in Ontario have an import tax. It's quite significant. So we have to work out some of these really archaic laws that really don't serve us. And I don't know if you have those in some of your states as well.
We do.
Yeah, it's just crazy, right? And they're just a barrier, and nobody removes them. Like, why are they still here? Yeah.
No, we have a lot of, not necessarily the same ones, but we have those kind of regulatory issues. So you said something I just wanted to ask you because I've never heard of it. What's a 100-mile diet? You only eat within 100 miles of where you live?
Yeah, I think this is, and Sunny, you can probably add color to this as well, because this is kind of, like a chef's thing, right? Where the idea is you would collect and forage and, support farmers and so forth that were local and eat local. So yeah, it's a pretty cool concept. And, and I think, other things too, like I think the pandemic has probably helped drive more interest to supporting local wines here as well, which is pretty interesting and unique. But I wanted to say, as far as the second part of that question too, do consumers here in Canada care and look at packaging? They're starting to. What I understand and know is that, one, we need to simplify it for them, because your average consumer already finds wine complicated and kind of overwhelming at times, right? And they don't really know what these certifications mean or what they're for or what they do. And so there's some education that needs to happen here. And we're certainly seeing that on the geeky sommelier level, or, like Sunny studying for MW, like absolutely they're going to know what all of this terminology is and what it means. But your average customer is going to go, huh? This is vegan? I thought all wines were vegan. Or, what is sustainability with wine? So I haven't, now that being said, there is a huge push to look for vegan certifications or wines that at least have the V symbol on them. I've seen massive uptick in that.
Well, that's interesting, because I always wonder if people make the connection between changing their behaviors now that we've been through this pandemic. Like, are they making the connection? How can I make this better, if you will, and by eating local, or even thinking about we need to treat this planet better? Or it's been a lot of focus on vaccines and getting us, healthy again, but like, where did it all originate from, right? So it's good to hear that some people are making the connection. But I wanted to switch gears a little bit, because of course you have a super interesting project which you call your passion project, called the Social Herbivore, and I would love for you to tell our listeners about that a little bit. It's a company you co-founded with my friend Priya, and what your mission is with this initiative.
Yeah, thanks. Well, about 3 years ago, I have to start at the beginning. About 3 years ago, I was tasked by the company that I worked for to create a seminar. Okay, create an educational seminar. It could be whatever I want, just create something new. And I did a bit of research and I really thought on it. And I thought, you know what, plant-based food and vegan, if you take it in the context of a diet, right? And it's a lot more than that, I know, but even from a diet, is the fastest growing trend in North America. And I thought, nobody is really talking to all of these people about having a fabulous experience with wine and food. What's, it's just like everybody thinks, okay, if you're vegan, then you just eat granola and you certainly wouldn't enjoy a glass of wine. And we all know this is not the case. So I thought I wanted to do a seminar on this, and I wanted to just do like a bit of a deep dive. And so we had a dinner, we had a big seminar with Soms, and it was awesome. Really great chef amazing food. We paired it all with vegan friendly wine. So it was all vegan. We talked to the trade. And at that time I did get a few looks out of the side of my, what are you doing, Jen? Like, is this a thing? I think that was one of the quotes. Is this actually a thing, Jen? And I was like, oh yeah, you watch, it's a thing. Well, Priya came to the dinner. And by the way, it was sold out. And she said, we got chatting. She said, I've been really wanting to meet with you and work on a book. And like, let's talk about this. Cause that was kind of her idea, was to do a book. And we had a coffee. We talked about this book idea, and that was it. I was sold. I was like, absolutely. There is no book out there explaining how to work plant-based food with wine and make it an amazing and magical experience. And so we've been working on that now for 3 years, I want to say. And we are getting close. By the end of the summer, we should be published. Like, it should be done.
Great. Congratulations. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get my hands on it.
So the Social Herbivore is a book. Is it also a company that does seminars? What else do you guys do, or will you be doing?
Yeah. So, the book is definitely, I guess, the foundation of how and why we came together. But that being said, we've started a few other projects, if you will. So one of them is to create a vegan directory. So we've started that for wineries. So we started that just in Canada, and we're just tackling Canada first, because again, what we found was, people didn't know where to go and find wines that were vegan friendly. And so we've started that, and that's been really fun. And it's been amazing to see the amount of wineries now getting certification in the last couple of years. Again, a couple of years ago, when we talked to them about it, they're like, well, what are you talking about? And they've come back to us, actually several, and said, yeah, we've got the certification. So we do that together. We do tastings and events also around plant-based matching food and wine. And again, just elevating that experience, right? It's meant to be social. It's meant to be fun, but there's no reason you can't have that fabulous, like, aha moment with food and wine just because it's plant-based. And I mean, Sunny will attest to this as a chef as well. I would argue you actually need a higher level of skill, really, to create these magnificent dishes, because you're not just working with a great cut of meat that's basically going to sell itself, right? You have to put the work in. And so yeah, I'm really, really excited about that. So the events have been really fun, and just another way to kind of connect and grow our audience.
Well, it's definitely sorely needed. And, we are seeing, like you were saying, now people are getting certified, producers are getting certified. And now with 11 Madison Park, the 3 Michelin star restaurant here in New York, going plant-based, I think that will also change the sort of landscape here, if you will. So I think it's more and more accepted that eating plants is not lame. It's actually good for you and can be very creative. And especially if you're a chef, if you're really passionate about food, I think you should embrace, you have thousands of other things to cook with, right? Not just your 5 average proteins. And so I really love your messaging and the way you present it, because it's like you said, vegans don't only drink kombucha, right? We love wine too.
So for kind of neophytes who might be listening and who aren't vegan and aren't experts, what makes a wine vegan? Can we just go through that for just a minute?
Yeah, of course. Okay, there's different levels, really, but let's start with the one where most folks would be most concerned about, and that is the juice in the bottle. And so wine can be not vegan from different things used for fining or filtering. Okay. So making your wine like sparkly clear, or, not have a lot of sediment or things like that. So historically what was used was what was around the farm. So blood, egg whites, what am I missing here?
Fish bladders.
Fish bladders. That's right.
Yeah. Some delicious stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, wait, I didn't know that blood was used. That's a new one to me.
Yeah. Ox blood, historically.
Ox blood. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now that's kind of weaned its way out. But some of the others are quite popular, right? Including egg white is really, really big.
Really popular. Yeah.
Yeah. But that being said, there are vegan friendly alternatives. Like just using like a membrane filter, or pea protein is a big one, or even just time. So letting the wine settle and then racking off the clear wine, basically. So there's opportunities, and you can find a few other items as well. Like if sugar is added, that is derived from
bone char.
Right? Yeah. Char. And they might also use these methods for, stabilizing color or adjusting tannins in that. So that's the big thing, right? Is what's in the bottle. And so if you just avoid all of those, then the juice in the bottle doesn't have any of that. That usually means a lot, okay, to somebody. But you can absolutely go way further, and this is what we're seeing some wineries do, which is amazing. And that means that everything from the glue that's on the label, or the inks that are used for the label, or what's happening in the vineyard, right? Are they importing manure and using all kinds of animal products and using animals actually in the vineyard? Because if you look at the definition of vegan, it's really not using animals for our benefit, right? So it's taking all of these things into consideration, the food that you serve at the winery, right? And there are a couple wineries where I look to them as the absolute example of this, like Courchebella, like Carlo Estate that we have here in Ontario and Canada, right? And so when one is really wanting to dig into, okay, who is this winery and what are they doing? Like, I want to know, those are a couple of my go-tos where I'm like, you can feel super confident about these two wineries, and they make good wine, of course, as well.
That's really interesting. Thank you for that kind of 101 of vegan. I know wines. I know it's much, much more complicated than that. I had a question that is sort of related to what we're talking about. So when I decided to call this podcast the Sustainability Series, I had a view of what the word sustainability is. Every person we talk to disagrees with me slightly and doesn't see it as a strong enough word with, specific enough measurements to it. But to me, sustainability also meant care for animals and care for workers under the umbrella of sustainability. So other people call that social responsibility or regenerative agriculture. The three pillars under that, I know one of them is how you treat your workers. So I was wondering, how do you think of the word sustainability? Like, how do you see it in this kind of confusion of language?
I know. I mean, it's a big word. You're right. And let's understand too, even if we're just taking it in context of certifications, that they are all different, region to region, country to country. They all have their own slight differences. And that might not be a bad thing, because what is of most concern here in Ontario may not be of most concern in some place like California, for example. And I get that. But I mean, to me, sustainability is a holistic approach to their business and their vineyard. And when you look at a business holistically, I mean, it should be sustainable financially. It should be sustainable to everyone who's working in it, right? And and look at every piece of the pie, really, and everywhere. So if you have a bottle, like, okay, what's going on in the vineyard, then what's going on in the winery, and then how is that bottle being sent forward into the world as well, and looking at the different stages of that as well, right? So I think you have to consider all of these words and even more, like carbon footprint, and biodiversity. If you are really indeed fully looking at sustainability as holistic.
Well said. Thank you. I feel better already about the use of my term. I'm like, okay,
Yay.
we're back on. Yay.
Finally vindicated, right?
Finally vindicated. Someone agrees with me. Anyway, I think you have a question, Sunny.
Oh, yeah. I know you just landed a role as director of alcohol curation at Fresh City Farms, which I think is a company that provides organic groceries and meals. And I assume that the wine selections you will be, selecting will also be geared toward more environmentally friendly wines. And I was just curious about, do you see the demands for wines correlate with people's interest in organic foods? Do you find them asking, where is my wine coming from versus, we always want to know where our food comes from? Is there some sort of a movement towards that, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just been kind of like a natural growth pattern for the average consumer. They absolutely started with their food, but now that they've kind of got that down, now they're kind of looking to other products that they consume. So whether it be a juice or whether it be a beer or a wine, absolutely, they want to know. And so for me, it's really interesting because I've had to kind of understand their sourcing policy to begin with, which is quite detailed and really looks at farming practices in great length of everybody. And many more things. And I'm actually creating a sourcing policy for us on alcohol. And so that's really interesting. So I absolutely will be looking at organic, sustainable, biodynamic, fair labor, carbon footprint or carbon neutral, and understanding if a winery, for example, doesn't have those certifications. Okay, are they practicing green anyways? And can they verify that with me and to me, right? So I have to dig a little bit. If they don't have the certifications. And I personally don't slight any winery for not having a certification because you don't know where they are on their personal journey, right? The certifications might not have been available, which was what I was encountering in BC. The sustainability certification isn't even online yet. So I can't slight anybody for not even having it. And some of these farmers, as you all know, have been just practicing this.
Yeah.
They'll never go for a certificate. I shouldn't say never, but it hasn't even crossed their mind because they have just been sustainable or even organic or some very close version to that forever.
I think that's really important. And also, of course, there are monetary issues too of, the length of time it takes and the paperwork. Do they have people to actually even do that? And of course, the costs of it. But I think that's great that, having someone like yourself who's actually going in and doing the groundwork. And so you can know that I actually have done my research on these wines. I know what they're actually doing. And I understand, of course, certifications is easier to just have that stamp at the back of but it's also sometimes a gray area what that actually means as well. So I think that educating people maybe like you are doing through Social Herbivore and all the other areas you're involved in is really important in the wine industry for sure.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, I really do think it's up to us who are educating, really, who are buying and who are educating to talk about this. And I'm so excited that you are doing this series and just, bringing a spotlight to it, because it's really that education that is going to help change the end user. Right. Mm-hmm. And therefore help grow this and make it even more accessible. We all know how much organics cost many years ago. Trying to buy an organic apple is like, what? $5?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. What? $5 for an apple? What?
Now there, now because there is, what are the words? Like, there's mass, organic it's a big thing. It's way easier in ways. It's still, don't get me wrong, it's still expensive to get the certification. It's still expensive to do this. But when you're not the only kid on the block doing this, when lots of people are, there's just a lot more resources. And of course, it makes it slowly by slowly a little bit more affordable.
Yeah.
This leads me to a question that I had, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'm confused, but I thought that in some of the Canadian provinces, there was a monopoly that bought the wine. Is that right? There are monopolies. Is that correct?
That is correct. And yes, here in Ontario, where I am, there is a monopoly. So it is it's called the LCBO.
Right.
That's the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, basically in a nutshell.
Right. My thought was that if there's a monopoly and they were, kind of bought into the idea of organics, biodynamics, it could really be a game changer for a country or a region. Do you see that sort of? I know that happened, Sunny, in Norway. That happens in Norway and Sweden in terms of the products that they bring in.
Yeah, they're very particular with, not just about being organic, but also how they treat their workers. They're looking into sort of deeper. But I'm not sure. I don't live there now, obviously, anymore, but my family's there. But I'm curious about that question, how you see it in Canada, because I don't really see, maybe I'm wrong, but Norwegians really being like, oh, I only want organic wine. They basically just jump on whatever. But I could be wrong. I mean, they want quality wine, but I'm not so sure they're like really sort of strict about that. So how is it in Canada?
Well, I would say that the liquor board here announced, I guess probably about a year and a half ago, that they were going to champion the spirit of sustainability, which was interesting. They do carry some products. What I will tell you as a buyer just going in is that it's not very clear. There's no, I asked somebody, okay, where can I find a vegan wine? They have no idea. Like the product consultants, there's no shelf, there's nowhere to go. You literally have to turn every single bottle back around. They're not making, I guess, from what I've seen, a big splash around, certified organic or sustainable or these types of things. And they're not really doing the education piece. And that's too bad. But they have said they would. So maybe it's just, they got sidetracked by COVID. I don't know. It's a little bit different here too, because again, being government run, I mean, it's not that everybody who works there, like alcohol is their passion or this is their jam, right? Like,
right.
It's kind of like there's the post office, there's the liquor stores, there's,
right. Right.
It's like, it's kind of weird. And it's kind of it's kind of a shame really, because they're doing a disservice in a way to the population here. Now, that being said, with COVID, things have changed here for the first time ever. And they started letting restaurants sell wines and slowly by slowly, like the stores I work with, we're starting to be able to sell alcohol. And this is a very new thing. And so I think what's going to happen is they're going to just, continue to sell wine, perhaps the way they do, or pivot a little bit, but will have the opportunity to tell the story to the Ontario consumers.
That's great.
So at the end, so what future trends do you see now going forward in terms of production, new varietals and consumer behavior? We're obviously talked about consumer behavior, but what do you see happening in the next 5 to 10 years? Put up your crystal ball.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one good thing is we're all drinking a lot of wine right now.
We certainly are.
We're drinking a ton of wine. I've done my share. I've done my fair share, I can say, since COVID happened.
Me too.
Me three.
But, with that, I think some of us are looking to cut back. And what it is we actually like the flavor. we like the flavor of that gin and tonic or that glass of wine. And so I think what we're going to see is that lower alcohol and non-alcohol are going to take a much bigger market share, but they're going to be really well done. Okay. It's not going to be that, years ago when I was pregnant and I bought this wine that was non-alcoholic because we had a celebration, and it was like I was better off drinking my child's juice box. Like, it was so bad. And now what we're seeing slowly is actually wines that are very good, and even in the low alcohol category. And of course, there's always been some low alcohol wines, but what I'm saying is this is going to be a very big trend. So I see that. I see rosé is still holding strong and taking a bigger market share, which is super cool. I think alternative packaging is a huge trend. And I can say that for me as somebody who, is really looking for green products, that I'm looking and I'm hoping to move the dial on those customers around packaging and getting over it. And I feel like maybe in the States, people are a little bit better about getting past packaging, but here in Canada, it's like, woo.
No, it depends on the consumer here too, and where you live. It's we're not necessarily any less that way than you guys are.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's good to know. It took us 10, 15 years to get over screw caps. So I think we're there. But yes, this whole wine in a can or in a Tetra Pak, it's still a slow go. But that being said, I think, again, as consumers become more educated and more conscious of the environment, that they're going to be looking for alternative packaging. Yeah.
That's great. We have taken up so much of your time. Thank you so much. It was really fascinating to discuss all of this stuff with you, and congratulations on all your new exciting projects. I can't wait to buy your book.
Well, thank you both so much for having me. It was absolutely my pleasure. And you guys enjoy the rest of this lovely sunny day.
Thank you. You too, with a glass of rosé. Vegan, of course. Okay. Bye-bye.
Next week, we're going to be speaking with Christy Frank, owner of Cupcake Wineworks in upstate New York. Christy has been really active in the wine industry, fighting the wine tariffs last year, as well as a guru and advisor to many different organizations. Can't wait to speak to her next week. When you're looking for our podcasts, they drop on Fridays, and you can find them wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks so much for listening.
This is Vigneto, a podcast.
From the sun